Sound Booth Theater presents. I can still vividly remember the most disappointing day of my life. I was 60, perhaps 70 years old, an accomplished wizard, a peerless researcher who had devoted his life to uncovering the darkest secrets of the arcane arts. Nothing was beyond my reach, no subject too complex or too dark for me to unravel. The nations of the world and I had reached an agreement. They would leave me be, and I, in turn, would only teleport into their keeps and stashes of hidden lore every few years. Information, I believe, is to be shared, mostly with me. I was content, happy even, as there's nothing like the discovery of something new, of another new piece of the puzzle clicking into place to brighten my day. I had been running a series of experiments, my laboratory filled with the stench of chicken blood and offal, my gloved arms covered to the elbows in experimental refuse. A normal, productive evening. Some parts of the memory are a bit hazy, actually. It's been centuries, you see. I recall muttering something to an assistant, one of the many that apprenticed themselves to me on their own quests for knowledge. The arcane sciences, you see, are art and, as the name suggests, science. The most complex spell can be impacted by the slightest variation in application or circumstance. Truly, most of these small variables can be ignored or smoothed over with an application of will and power, but that would mean failing. It would be like a master painter hiding a mistake behind a fresh layer of paint, as opposed to truly understanding the purpose of each stroke that marked the canvas. I had just pinpointed with repeatable experiments the reason why certain very illegal spells, whose nature involved the soul and the extraction thereof, would sometimes function poorly. As it turned out, the turning of the moons above did have an impact on the arcane, and I could prove it at last! I knew that I had once more found a way to slip my name into the history books. It almost led me to missing out on the ping, on the warning flashing through my consciousness. I had leveled up. Grinning, I inspected my stats. My grin froze. The world for a moment chilled as confusion and uncertainty filled me. Level, max. 2 words, right at the top of my own status screen. Nothing else. Just those 2. I would like to say that it all hit me in a flash, that my rage against the world, against the system, and against the gods started at that very moment. But that's not quite true. Stepping back, I told my assistant to pack up after our experiments, and I returned to my chambers for a bit of wine and a moment to contemplate. Seeing something at the maximum level wasn't impossible. I had certainly gotten some stats that high over the decades. Seeing their growth stop was irritating, but that was tempered by the knowledge that I had reached the pinnacle in that one area. But my level? The expression of how strong I was? If that had reached the maximum, then there was just no more growth to be had. No more point in experimenting to gain experience. No point in combating beasts to see how their magics worked, or of studying to grow ever more powerful. I can recall throwing a goblet of wine across the room, an uncharacteristic show of violence and frustration for me. I think it's understandable. I had just then discovered that one of the pillars in my life had not so much crumbled, but had been revealed to be meaningless. This was, of course, utterly unacceptable. In the years that followed, my research took a turn away from merely knowing the secrets of magic and the universe. No, that wasn't enough. Power alone wasn't enough. Magic wasn't enough. I needed more. A new cause, a new reason. First, immortality. Through means too dark to speak of. Nations burned. Fearsome creatures that terrorized entire continents were rendered down into so many reagents. Heroes rose up to fight me, misguided and full of thoughtless zeal. They made good test beds for my further learning. Once I became immortal, truly immortal, I set my sights higher. I could have become a lord of sorts, an emperor of the dead. I had created an unsleeping, undying, and ever-loyal army. But I had no interest in merely ruling. What would I learn from observing peasants squabble in the mud? What secrets could merchants sell me that were truly worthy of my time? Why abase myself to the machinations of nobles who chased after small, pitiful things like prestige, honor, and power, and would rather take it from others than earn it for themselves? No. I aimed for the seat of the gods. The clergy mocked me before they fell. Holy magic was magic, and magic was my domain. The gods scoffed at my efforts, then cried as their celestial palaces met the ground at long last. And then, I watched over the world, 1,000 years old, more powerful than anything in the land. My level still mockingly only at max, calling upon others to underestimate me. I suppose I could have remade the world in my image, turn it into a bastion of learning and enlightenment. But frankly, I was tired. At long last, I decided that for my own health, for my own self-interest, I would lay myself to sleep. Not to death, for that had been barred to me when I found death and killed him. Not to timelessness, because who was I to allow mere time to dictate my actions? But to rest. I would sleep, and in some eons to come, when the universe at last reached its end, I would look upon the vast emptiness of the void itself and demand answers. The glowing orbs that served as my eyes extinguished themselves. My loyal servants, crafted with my love and care, laid themselves down to rest. And I slept. And then some punk woke me up.